Welcome to Early Indicators. Today we continue our February domain on environmental tipping points with a theme that reveals one of the most consequential and underreported dynamics shaping the next decade: the rise of climate-driven infrastructure failures. Power grids, water systems, stormwater networks, and transportation corridors are being pushed beyond their design limits by extreme cold, extreme heat, and extreme precipitation. These failures are not random breakdowns. They are signals. And signals are structural, not events, early, not reactive, underreported, not mainstream, and directional, not episodic. They reveal where the physical systems that support modern life are beginning to fracture under environmental stress. To understand how we reached this moment, we need to trace the long arc of infrastructure development and climate exposure. In the mid-20th century, much of the world's critical infrastructure was built for a climate that no longer exists. Power grids were designed around predictable seasonal demand. Water systems were engineered for historical rainfall patterns. Stormwater networks were sized for storms that were considered rare. Transportation corridors were built on assumptions of stable temperatures and manageable freeze-thaw cycles. For decades, these systems performed reliably. By the 1990s, early signs of strain began to appear. Heat waves pushed grids to their limits. Drought stressed water supplies. Flooding overwhelmed stormwater systems. But these incidents were treated as anomalies. The early 2000s brought clearer evidence that climate volatility was increasing, yet infrastructure investment lagged. Over the past 15 years, the gap between environmental stress and system capacity has widened dramatically. What once appeared as isolated failures now form a global pattern. Infrastructure built for the past is colliding with the climate of the present. Several forces converged to create this inflection. Climate change increased the frequency and severity of extreme weather. Urbanization expanded demand on aging systems. Economic pressures delayed maintenance and upgrades. Governance gaps left infrastructure planning reactive rather than anticipatory. Technological dependence increased the consequences of failure. These forces reshaped macro-scale systems such as national energy grids, water basins, and transportation networks, while also influencing micro-scale systems including local utilities, municipal budgets, and community resilience. Current signals show the shift with growing clarity. First, power grids are experiencing more frequent outages during heat waves and cold snaps, revealing capacity constraints and aging equipment. Second, water systems are failing under the combined pressure of drought, contamination, and infrastructure decay. Third, stormwater networks are being overwhelmed by intense rainfall events, leading to urban flooding. Fourth, transportation corridors, highways, rail lines, and airports are experiencing disruptions due to heat-related buckling, freeze-thaw damage, and storm impacts. Fifth, new research shows that infrastructure failures often cluster, with one system's breakdown triggering failures in others. These developments rarely dominate mainstream coverage, yet they reveal a system under mounting stress. Signal confidence, accelerating and destabilizing. Here is where the shift is most visible. In Texas, extreme cold events have repeatedly strained the power grid, revealing vulnerabilities in generation, transmission, and winterization practices. In the U.S. Southwest, prolonged drought is stressing water systems, forcing cities to implement emergency measures and reconsider long-term supply strategies. In Germany, intense rainfall events have overwhelmed stormwater systems, causing catastrophic flooding and exposing gaps in urban planning. In South Asia, heat waves are disrupting rail networks as tracks warp under extreme temperatures, affecting millions of commuters. These examples illustrate how climate-driven infrastructure failures reshape systems at every layer. Nations must reconsider energy planning, water management, and transportation investment. Cities face rising costs as infrastructure failures affect budgets, emergency response, and long-term planning. Firms encounter operational risks tied to supply chain disruptions, facility outages, and regulatory shifts. Communities experience service interruptions, rising costs, and increased vulnerability to extreme weather. Individuals face higher utility bills, transportation delays, and reduced access to essential services. At the macro layer, infrastructure failures alter national energy security, water availability, and economic stability. They influence migration patterns, investment flows, and political priorities. At the micro layer, they affect households, neighborhoods, small businesses, and local ecosystems. The fragility revealed is profound. Systems built on assumptions of climate stability are colliding with a rapidly changing reality. Future expectations point toward several trajectories. In the short term, over the next 1 to 3 years, more regions will experience grid stress, water shortages, and stormwater failures. Emergency responses will become more frequent. In the medium term, over 3 to 10 years, infrastructure investment may shift toward resilience, modularity, and decentralization. Microgrids, advanced water recycling, and nature-based stormwater solutions may expand. In the long term, beyond 10 years, climate-driven infrastructure failures may reshape national economic geography, prompting relocation, altering political landscapes, and redefining public sector priorities. Entire regions may require large-scale adaptation investments to remain viable. Early indicators to watch include grid stress alerts, water system failures, stormwater overflow reports, transportation disruptions, and emergency response spending. Potential tipping points include the collapse of major grid segments, chronic water shortages in large cities, and the failure of key transportation corridors. What to watch next? Pay close attention to regions where grid stress, water shortages, and stormwater failures appear together. These clusters often signal where infrastructure systems are approaching critical thresholds. Watch for early policy responses, such as resilience fund expansions, infrastructure bond issuances, and regulatory changes. These developments can reveal where governments anticipate future infrastructure instability. In summary, climate-driven infrastructure failures are among the most consequential environmental signals of our time. They reshape energy systems, water management, transportation networks, and community resilience. They reveal fragilities in systems built on outdated assumptions about climate stability. And they offer early insight into where environmental pressures will intensify in the coming decades. These signals are quiet, but they are deeply consequential. Thank you for listening to Early Indicators. If you found this episode valuable, please like, subscribe, follow, and share. Your support helps bring attention to the signals shaping our future. This episode draws on publicly available information, including international think tank reports, academic research, public climate and policy data, open-source intelligence, and non-copyrighted summaries of global developments. No proprietary or confidential sources were used. This episode is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute political advice, financial guidance, or predictive certainty. All interpretations are based on publicly available information and are intended to support general understanding of global trends.